What do you want to do?
Yep.
It's quite ahead of its time.
Politician.
I'm really interested in like some
Conservative party.
something.
What about that? Is that developed then, and then had this social democratic government with the brand, and so
And then next year, I mean, things change so fast.
there came some
I think
sort of shock.
throughout the last years, so many different things that were so interesting that I could have engaged in. Decided to go on.
World Habitat Awards. We're changing our name as an organisation. We've got this organisational name which is just terrible. So I'm going by the awards that we do because it's the only thing anybody's ever heard of.
Your name is Ireland. Where do you come from?
Yeah, well, I come from England, but
Come from England. Okay.
I did live in Germany when I was a child. That was a very long time ago.
We have an Irish sister.
Oh, right, okay.
Jeanette,
We're just checking the mics. Is that one right?
we're going for 1 hour.
1 hour.
It's 3:35.
Can everyone just say how you work? Just to see if the mics are working.
Okay, test, 1, 2, 3. Does it work?
Is that working? Guys, we're doing the mic test. Can you give me a reaction to tell me if it's working? Yeah.
Hello, 1, 2, 3, 4.
That one sounds like it's working. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah, I can hear you. Very good.
Hello, does
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
hello, does this work?
I think that one's working. I
Is that
definitely.
still working?
Yeah. Okay. So I think. Are you happy? Not yet.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon.
Hooray. Yeah.
Hello, everybody.
Sorry, one last. Let's just have one last. Hello. Hey everyone. I'm not getting any reaction.
I have one last question. Do you have your phones?
Turn them off.
If I can have them? Just hold on to them. Okay. They think that the phone must be interfering with.
Good thinking back.
Can you give it to Martina?
I need a watch or a
No more gadgets?
Sure.
Welcome, everyone. We are at the 26th session of the Governing Council of UN Habitat, and our generic rubric is implementing the new urban agenda. This is one of 3 symposia highlighting one country experience. Now, for me personally, the idea of housing being a problem is very much perhaps associated with emerging economies, and we seem to think that countries in the so-called developed world, everything is fine, they're building housing, everybody lives happily, and urbanization isn't a problem. Therefore, it's of particular interest to showcase the experience of Germany, and we're going to start off with a presentation to highlight the German experience, which will be delivered by the gentleman to my immediate left and to your right. His name is Mr. Franz Marais. He is head of the German delegation. And then we have 4 discussants who are going to respond in some manner before we turn the conversation over to our obliging audience. So if I may introduce the rest of my panel, the gentleman in a lovely tie is Mr. David Ireland of the World Habitat Awards. The lady next to him is Dr. Aditi Ramdorai, who is a manager at the McKinsey Global Institute. Next to her, all in black, is Mr. Jonas Freist-Helt, a European youth advisor for UN Habitat. And last but by no means least, we have Monsieur Frédéric Vallier, avec qui je peux parler un peu français par la suite, who is Monsieur Frédéric Vallier, who is the Secretary General of United Cities Local Government, or ULCG Europe. So, lots to discuss, lots of us to discuss it. I think I'll get 1 out of 10 if I say as little as possible, so as to maximize the contributions of both of us. Sir, would you be so kind? Mr. Franz Marais, head of the delegation, Germany.
Yes, thanks a lot. Thanks for the opportunity to present something where I must admit I'm not too familiar with it myself. I'm a member of the German Development Ministry, BMZ, and in that function, one of the areas I'm responsible for is urban development. We are sharing this responsibility together with our Ministry of Environment and Housing, who was not able to come, so did something which I'm not so used to, prepared a presentation. I must admit I'm a PowerPoint agnostic, but I hope that I can lead you a little bit through these slides. And wanted to explain a little bit how that functions in Germany. Of course, we are a country well off, but of course also it's not 100% good for everybody. And we have a number of people who are economically and also socially marginalized. Our housing policies support them in a way. Let me first of all give you the overall framework. We're sitting here at the Governing Council of UN Habitat. Most of you may know there is a goal on sustainable cities and communities, and the first target of it is on housing. This SDG 11 was then concretized in Quito in the Habitat 3 conference with the so-called New Urban Agenda. And it's a topic that is also relevant for Germany. Last year, the German government issued the National Strategy on Sustainability. And it also has some issues regarding housing. First of all, less land use for housing, then lower energy consumption in housing, and finally, a reduced number of people who require social benefits to make their living. I'd like to start with a short historical breakdown. Social housing in Germany started somewhere in the 19th century with industrialization and with the growth of cities. regulated by the market itself and not by government activities, by government delivery. Well, we had an unfortunate situation a couple of years later, World War II. Here is a picture of Hamburg as it looked after bombings in 1943, which led to that up to 80% of the housing units in most parts of Germany were destroyed. So we had a huge need for shelter and accommodation. We had lots of internal refugees, and we had lots of people that came from Eastern European parts to Western Europe to find like an asylum there. So there was a huge need for reconstruction, and between the 50s and the 80s, about 5 million apartments and about 3 million owner-occupied dwellings could be reconstructed. Today we're talking about around 40 million housing units in Germany. If you see, we have a population of about 80 million. This means the average household size is quite small. It's like 2 people per housing unit, as opposed to many countries where you have a family of 6 or 8 or 10 in one housing unit. And even if we don't really have a significant increase in population, we have a very strong demand for more housing units, which is around 350,000 units a year. We'd say more or less 10% of the existing. 82% of these houses are detached houses, while only 80% are apartment houses. But almost more than half of the people live in apartment houses. So the area that is being used for the detached houses is by far larger, and this is certainly also one of the issues that has to do with registration. As I said, we have a rental market in Germany, as opposed to many, many countries, but let's say it's really also a cultural background. People in Germany feel more at ease if they rent their house than if they own the house. And it's not considered, let's say, a socially lower standard if you are not owning the house in which you live. So now we have here the absolute figures. Out of 40 million houses, 18 million are occupied by the owner. This is like 45%. The other 55% are rented houses from private people, or 8 million are being rented from companies, professional companies doing that. So the fact that we have a rental market, I think the key feature that is of high importance that this functions is the fact that we have a strong legislation that protects the tenants, especially against eviction, but also with regard to the which everything to the three forces of the stronger. But say, okay, there are areas which are important, like the ecological issue, that have to be regulated, and there are socially disadvantaged groups of the population who need support and who need protection. And therefore the market economy is regulated through social and ecological consideration. So first of all, we have, maybe the word no is not fully correct. There is a low percentage of direct state investments in housing, especially for shelters, for homeless and so on. There is support for investors to give an incentive that they invest in social housing. So if they build an apartment house with 50 units, and if they build in 5 social units with lower prices, they will get either a subsidy or a tax deduction to do that. Now there are tax incentives, sometimes are grants also, or what do you call it, grants or loans with low interest rates, and there is legislation to protect. The other side is the social support. We have this legislation on social housing, and it's also important because the idea of it is also to have a stronger integration, that socially weaker parts of the population are not being sent to what frequently is called the areas outside the peri-urban areas, but that they live in the same apartments and condominiums as people with a higher income. There are housing benefits. There is a policy to support people not only to rent, but who gets the support to buy his house or to build a house or an apartment. And if you are unemployed or if you are in need of social welfare assistance, you will also get assistance for the cost of living, for the cost of housing. Another important principle is that of subsidiarity, something that we also have been promoting in the Habitat 3 discussions. We have the federal government setting the legal framework and financing part of the required financial support. But the influence of the federal government on the housing market and housing policies is rather very low. This is frequently also being criticized because in our 16 federal states, the Länder, there are very diverse building regulations and so on, and there is sometimes also criticism that this leads to different standards of living for the people in the different Bundesländer. And the general idea is that if you are a German, you are living in Germany and not in a advantage or disadvantage region. The Länder have the core bulk in legislation regarding housing, building, regional planning, and so on, and they are responsible for the issue of social housing. The federal government finances 50%, the other 50% comes from the Länder. In the end, it's the municipalities, and that's also why this is the largest part of the triangle, because that's where implementation happens, that's where delivery happens, and therefore they are the ones who do land use planning, and they are the ones who provide the basic infrastructure for all and at high quality level, which is one of the important principles of the social market economy. If you look at the current situation in the German housing market, that came especially, but not only, as a result of German unification. You see to the right side a situation of oversupply and lots of vacancies in peripheral regions. Eastern Germany traditionally was less populated than Western Germany, and as a result of unification, there was also in the first years a strong move of people from East Germany to West Germany. So you have many, especially smaller villages and towns, who are virtually empty, where, let's say, there's only 20% of the original population left. The other thing around happens then in Western Germany, where there is a huge need of affordable and of high-quality housing. And this is especially in the areas, the economically highly developed areas. You see to the right in the bottom, that's around Munich. You have the Frankfurt area, it's not so good to see in the middle, but also the area around Berlin, because Berlin is the economic center in that region, and there's a strong need for housing shelter. Coming to the social side of housing policies, as I said, based on market. So what the state does is to incentivize, but also to support where needed. First of all, incentives and support for the construction of new houses. As I said, 350,000 are needed a year. And this is being regulated also through issues regarding the social apartments or social housing, but also regarding on the ecologic side of the market economy. We have much stronger building regulations regarding energy consumption, regarding the environmentally friendliness and so than we had 30 years ago. Next point are the grants for social housing programs. The general idea in Germany is that if a family has to pay more than 40% of their net income, then they need a support for their housing purposes. So it's a rent, or if you are buying a house and the mortgage is more than 40% of your income, then you are entitled to a support. This is then being paid out through grants for specific investments, or also support for the rental or so. The other side are those people who are, let's say, very well below the income level, especially jobless people, and namely people who are jobless for more than a year, because then also the amount of government support they get through the joblessness insurance is going down. And here they get, let's say, in the highest level, they get the full payment for the rental. So this is a subsidy, but they don't get the money, the landlord gets it, so that they can have security of tenure in where they are living, being tenants or being owners. And therefore I put this legal protection of tenants as an important feature. Now, with the new government, that there will be elections this year in September in Germany, national elections. The term are 4 years, so the current government started in 2013, and 2014 they established the National Alliance for Housing. Between the federal government, the state governments, the cities themselves, the private sector, and relevant stakeholders. I don't want to bore you now with their program of 10 points, but highlight 2 of them. One was that the development of social houses and cooperative housing. And the other one was that they have created targeted tax incentives for the construction of more affordable housing.
Sorry, could you go back and say the first thing you said, because there was a bit of a rumble, I didn't hear it.
Oh.
The highlight was? The very first thing that you highlighted, said you said construction.
Construction.
Yes.
This means subsidies or soft loans.
Yes.
And incentives for investors building houses, apartment houses or detached houses that they will rent out, so that they rent them to people with a lower income. Okay. We're now trying to experiment new models for construction, for participation. So, for instance, in Berlin, they are supporting so-called building communities. So these are a couple of families, couple of people who together plan a housing unit. And they get cheap land, state-owned land, cheaper land, and they get subsidies for support for the architect, for the construction, so on. We have revitalized city neighborhoods. That's a phenomenon, you find it in many countries. I was just in South Africa. I lived there in 94, came to Durban. 94, the city was very strongly populated. There was a lot of life. The country is developing economically. The city is there's much less life there than before. That was a situation that we had in Germany in the 70s, 80s strongly. We're revitalizing the inner cities. This even led to, you will mention it possibly, to the fact that almost nobody can afford the rents in the inner cities. Ecologic building is strongly on the march. And eco quarters, this is in Vauban and Freiburg, with a lot of ecological building, lower energy consumption. That picture will not, it is too detailed to explain exactly, but they try to deconcentrate functions in order to make sure there is housing, there is business, there is education, everything in very near distances, so that transportation costs and the environmental costs are lower. Just a unfortunately, the colleague had to leave yesterday because I wanted to present you one example of a German city who takes the issue of the responsibility under the SDGs very seriously. And this is Mannheim. Mannheim is an industrialized city where a huge chemical company comes from. And they decided we want to make our city more livable and more sustainable based on the principle of sustainable development goals. They identified 8 core targets, among them stronger participation of the private sector, job creation, more tolerance and inclusion of immigrants and refugees, engagement and creativity by the people themselves, more education, but also try to base things on their own capital and not only on external subsidies. Now they are lucky because they have a huge income, so maybe they can finance it. They created the vision Mannheim 2030, and you possibly know the slogan, think globally and act locally. They turned it around and said, we act locally, but we think globally in that. Yeah, and from that we're coming to the international cooperation.
I'd like you to urge you to come to a close.
Yeah, exactly. I'm coming to a close. I would like to have presented you some concrete projects example how German development cooperation is transferring knowledge, experience, concepts. The preparation was a little bit short-lived, so next time I'll bring some examples with me. Just want to say, first of all, we are very engaged in the Habitat 3 process. Germany was a member of the preparatory commission. Now the follow-up. Therefore, we are now preparing in my ministry a new strategy on sustainable urbanization. And the focus is not to do more projects, no more urban projects, but the focus is to mainstream our activities. If you build a school in a city, it's not only an education project, it's also an urban project. Same applies to a hospital, or you work on good governance and so on. And therefore, a focus of my ministry is also facilitating partnerships at all levels, especially, but not only, especially among local governments and with stakeholders. Having said that, I thank you very much for your attention, and I definitely look forward to a lively discussion here. And I have one expert here in this room, Peter Götz, who used to be a member of the German parliament and also is very knowledgeable, much more than I am, on the issues of social housing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think you'll be very good. I think that let's kick off this discussion. Let me see the way my mind is thinking. I see Jonas representing youth. Obviously, what's being arranged is a society you're going to live in. So I'd like to see how you respond to these innovations. Then perhaps Frédéric, with the label Europe, could follow. And if I see you with McKinsey as a think tank, perhaps you could see the analytical thread to everything that's being said. And David, if you give awards, I'd like you to be critical and say perhaps not everything is as hunky-dory as we might think. Jonas.
Like to point out that also there's a tendency to privatize a lot of things in the last decade, and a lot of financing on public housing and on social housing was cut back, and a lot of stock of public housing agencies was sold to the private sector, which led to a shortage in social housing also. And since 2014, as Mr. Marais pointed out, the German government has come up with a new structure, a new policy to tackle issues that have emerged in the last years, and public housing, social housing, and housing as a public policy has re-emerged on the political agenda in Germany. But still, we can see that there's a huge lack of housing, especially in urban centers, as Mr. Marais also pointed out, for example, in Munich, in Berlin, in Hamburg, cities that are growing and cities that are also populated by a lot of young people. And Germany is unfortunately still not catching up with the construction of housing units until today. So for example, to give you an example, the city of Berlin, where I've been living in the last years, would have had to build 26,500 housing units in 2014, but only 8,700 were constructed. That led to a significant increase in rents, not only in Berlin, but Berlin is one of the cities that has been affected the most. For example, between 2002 and 2015, the price of an average flat of 100 square meters has risen by 75%. Just in the last year, in 2016, the price, depending on the district, has increased between 4 and 9%. So I really embrace the policy that the government has come up with to tackle these issues, and also the public housing agencies are buying back houses into the public stock. But nevertheless, the lack of policy within the last decade has also led to challenges today. And one of these challenges is that a lot of young people that, for example, have been living in districts with their families for a long time, move out, look for an apartment, are forced to look for affordable housing and can't find it in the neighborhood they have been growing up in, their families have been living in for decades, and they are pushed to the outskirts of a city. At the same time, also in Berlin, the prices at the outskirts of the cities are increasing so that people are further pushed out. And that's sad because a lot of people have to leave the social environment they have been growing up in for a long time, have to commute for 45 minutes or an hour to get back to the area they grew up in. And that also shatters the social environment that young people grew up in. So that's one of the major challenges for young people, to find housing that is affordable, close to the city center. And just to give you a very short last example, for example, in the city of Munich, where we have a huge demand for housing, families with a medium income have to travel up to 40 kilometers to the center of the city. So they only can find affordable housing in an area of 40 kilometers away from the city, center of the city. In Berlin, it's only 7 kilometers, for example, but it's increasing. And that's one of the biggest challenges that young people face today, finding affordable houses close to the city center where the vivid life of the city is going on. And as Mr. Marais pointed out, German cities have been revitalized within the last years, and that has led to a significant increase in prices. And it would be nice that young people would be included in these policies to better respond to the lack of housing also for young people. Finally, I'd like to point out that the ministry that Mr. Marais represents has been engaging a lot with young people also in coming towards working on the new urban agenda, and is also working together with a lot of youth when it comes to the strategy that Mr. Marais has just pointed out. And we as Youth Advisory Board, that is officially mandated by the GC26, by the GC, and is also present at the GC26, will also engage with the ministry and consulting the ministry on the strategy for international organizations that's currently being drafted in his ministry.
Yeah, well, it's very good that I speak after the representative of the youth, because I was going to mention a couple of things also that are very specific to Germany. Every country has its own specificities, of course, and Germany, in comparison to other big countries in Europe, has a network of medium-sized cities, or in the context of globalization, it's medium-sized cities. Of course, they are very important cities, but no huge metropolis like London or Paris, and that helped keep the pressure not so high as in other countries, I would say. But this pressure is growing, and as you mentioned, bigger cities in Germany are seeing that pressure coming up. Berlin, Munich, Hamburg, of course, Frankfurt a little bit. So things are, of course, changing a lot. But one thing that you said that is important is you have about a little bit less than 10% of lack of housing in comparison to the request of the people. But this is lower than in many other countries. So the pressure is still lower in Germany than it is in France or in London, of course, and other countries. So that reduces the price quite a bit compared to other places. And the other thing is that you mentioned subsidiarity, which of course is very important in Europe in general, but in Germany in particular, because it's a federal state. And municipalities have a great role to play. Municipalities have the land a lot of times, and they are able to sustain the construction of building of public housing by selling the land not at a too high price. So that regulates very much the market. And in Berlin, which is a case I know a little bit more than Munich or Hamburg, but you will confirm that, local public companies own 20% of the housing market in Berlin. So that's higher than the average in Germany, I think. And they have a policy of limiting the raise of rents, although the pressure is very strong on the market. So compared to other major cities in Europe, the rents are much lower. Of course, I can understand that it's growing, but if you compare the price of Berlin compared to Paris or London or Barcelona or Madrid, it's still much lower. So, but what I would like to say is that the role of municipalities is crucial in that sense. They are the ones who give the permits to build. They are the ones who have the land and can mobilize the land to enable buildings. And it's very important, as we speak here in the context of the UN Habitat, that we build a partnership between the national level, the regional level, and the local level to enable the housing market to be sustainable and to be affordable for the people. But the example of Germany is interesting in that sense, because the federal level is and the lenders are very much into supporting the people through social measures, social policies, where the local governments are much more into building, supporting the development of their territory and cities, and that's very important. But also one thing that is also very specific to Germany, you mentioned the reunification. The situation is very different from one area to the other, and there are, as you mentioned, many cities in the eastern part of Germany who have been reducing their population a lot, and the demographic pressure, of course, in Germany is also very different from other countries, and certainly has nothing to do with the emerging countries in Africa or other parts of the world, because the demography in Germany is very, very low. Although now with the arrival of migrants, it will change and might change, but it's still very different from other areas.
Thank you. I would like to first thank you and Habitat, of course, for this opportunity. You asked me about looking at this from an analytical lens. I'm representing the McKinsey Global Institute, which is a think tank of McKinsey, and we look into business and macroeconomic issues. 2.5 years ago, we published this report on affordable housing, because we believe that housing is becoming a global issue, and we wanted to contribute to this discourse. So what we did was we analyzed 2,400 cities across the world, and we looked at something we call the affordable housing gap, which is basically the difference between income available for housing and minimum adequate housing at market price. And we did this across 2,400 cities. The global affordability gap in housing is 650 billion, which is almost 1% of GDP. In Germany, this number is at around 10 billion, which is surprisingly low for a well-developed country. It's at 0.4% of German GDP. If you compare it to Germany's peers like France, which has half the population, but about 12 billion affordability gap, or the UK has about 20 billion US dollars affordability gap, or the United States with over 70 billion US dollars affordability gap, right? So if you compare Germany with its peers, you see that it's still relatively affordable. Having said that, there are hotspots and things are changing dramatically, especially over the last 4 or 5 years, where house prices and supply constraints have been making people feel the pinch in cities like Hamburg, Frankfurt, Munich, and Berlin. And also partially a few centers in the western part, the Ruhr area. Yeah, so that's a little bit around where Germany stands compared to its peers. I just wanted to go back to, you mentioned Germany is a renter's paradise, and it is, which is in some sense, it has, that's what has helped control prices, or at least keep home prices stable for several decades. So if you go back about 30 years, while German home prices on an average, right, not looking at hotspots, on an average have only gone up slightly. Over the last 10 years, 30 years, the home prices in the UK have gone up about 10x, and in the US about 3x. And in Germany, and one of the reasons for this is because the majority of people rent, it's in the interest of public to keep rents at a relatively stable level, unlike other countries that promote home ownership, where home price increase is seen as a positive economic development, right? And one of the things that we see this translating into is political will. And this is what has turned the debate towards capping rent prices or making regulations stricter. The other aspects, if you are, of course, kind of conservative mortgage regulations, not giving mortgages easily, and also tax incentives. So the tax system is set up in such a way that it promotes or incentivizes long-term ownership rather than short-term speculation. So that's a little bit of kind of a holistic look around what the drivers are behind keeping the German housing market relatively affordable.
Thank you. John, you asked me to be critical, and I may be, but...
Don't give them an award, I was saying.
The very nature of giving awards is you look at the best in a project or a housing project, and I think there's an awful lot in what Franz has described and what we see in Germany, which is good practice and what many other countries aspire to. And I think the figure for me, which struck me from that presentation, was about that percentage of private renters or renters, 55% of the market, I think. And there's a few other developed countries which have got similar figures: Switzerland, Austria, Sweden. And your other comment there about it not having a stigma, that actually it's just as socially acceptable if you're on a high income to be in private rented as owner occupied. And what that says to me is there must be something very good about that market. If people who can afford to have choice have chosen it, then it says that it's good. And I'm a great believer in the wisdom of crowds. So it strikes me there's a lot about that rented market, which is good. And I think as other people have described, what's good about it is the quality of it and also the affordability. And you spoke well about the affordability, but I think the quality is important. And the quality is not just about the building structures themselves, but what you described, Franz, about the regulation and the protection of tenants, meaning that actually it is a long-term choice. People can go into a home and expect to stay there rather than be pushed out. And I think this experience sort of contrasts with so many other developed countries where the rented sector has really become the residual sector. Where you go if you can't access any of the other better sectors of housing. And that's profoundly unfair, and it's profoundly unsatisfactory, because it means that a large proportion of people, through no fault of their own, are getting poorer quality housing and less security. So the fact that you have managed to avoid that in Germany, I think, is one of the things which makes the market so attractive there. What is interesting is why other countries have not been able to do the same. There's lots of countries have had high regulation of their rented market, But what's tended to happen in other countries is where that has happened, is that you've made renting housing a poor business choice for owners. If there's lots of regulations, there's less profit and it's less attractive, and what happens is the sector diminishes. And we saw this in the UK, where at one stage the private rented market went down to about 5% of the entire stock. It's now back up to 20-odd%. And I think this is seen in other countries where you have one political party introduces high levels of regulation, the market shrinks, another party gets in, releases all the legislation, a free market comes in, swings back the other way. And for an investor looking at something which is going to have less certainty, the market fluctuates from one extreme to the other, what they're expecting is a higher level of return because of the higher risk. And what you've done in Germany, which I think is so important, is that you have avoided doing that. Yes, the margins are not as good for renting housing as a landlord as they might be in the good times in other countries, but there's a consistency there. So an investor can invest in German housing and thinks, well, it's not going to get a huge return, but it's going to get a consistent return, and that's why they're prepared to do it. And I think that is what has been so successful about the German market.
Thank you. Franz, you've been scribbling frantically, so we might go back to you, but
Okay.
you'll excuse me if I adopt a fairly African perspective on all this. Am I, as a layman, getting it wrong in suggesting that there's no level of standardization? You can build what you want. These families that got together and say, let's build our house and let it be 3 floors. And am I getting the impression that in Germany, as long as you have the wherewithal and the wish to construct building, then government, this is a key word for me, the role of government comes and gives you 100% support. Is this a true understanding?
No, I'm not really clear if I understand what you mean. 100% support in which sense?
That you can
Financial?
build what you want.
No, not
so there's
at
no
all.
standardization of the...
Not at all.
Yeah, yeah.
I think, and to be
Because you see, in the slides on Singapore, what
Yeah.
we saw visually was that things tended to look very much alike. So I saw people in Germany sort of living in spaceship designs and things.
No, I think this is not considered very attractive. If you look at the last slide, this is
Yes.
an aerial picture of Leipzig. Leipzig, one of the largest cities in eastern Germany, and I think one of the cities that has most remarkably been able to become a very attractive surrounding in very few years. Now, because eastern Germany really had, through the socialistic leadership, everything was gray and nothing looked very attractive. And now you look at that picture, and this is a harmonious picture of housing and living. There is green, there are green spaces, there are modern houses, there are old houses, and so possibly what is not fully, how should I say, representative is you only see apartment houses here. It's not
Right,
detached.
okay, fair enough.
But
So do go on with your comments, because time is of the essence.
Yeah.
So what you were wishing to respond to what was said. Could you do so very quickly?
Well, there was one point I would respond to what you were saying. That I fully agree. It's a very positive that we do have a market for renting, and having 55% of the people renting, you can win or lose elections with good or bad housing policies. That is extremely important. But the other point, coming to the social side of the thing, I mentioned if your household income is that if 40% or more of your household income go into house rent or whatever your housing costs, then you deserve assistance. And this applies to 11% of the German population, so 1 out of 10. It is a high welfare problem, and it means that the German government last year spent around 16 billion for social assistance and another 1.7 billion for housing subsidy schemes. And it is a costly issue. Nonetheless, you know the figures better than I. It's only a small portion of the state expenditure, and it's also a much smaller portion of the German gross domestic product. So I would really say, I would advocate, don't say it's so expensive. It's an extremely good investment, and it pays out.
Thank you. Over to you. Here, questions from the floor, if we would. We could sustain this conversation for another 10 minutes.
Okay, I'd like to ask a question.
Your name and title, sir. Okay. I know we've seen you before, but we've forgotten who you are.
Okay, my name is Jaya. I'm from Malaysia.
Yes.
Okay. This is about a culture attitude, culture perspective. What we have seen in Asian cultures, they like to buy properties and keep the properties. They don't like to rent. If they have one house, they will, when they move to another city, they'll buy another house. So this is creating another environment where we are losing affordable houses because prices of the house just increase because there's people who like to purchase, continue to purchase house. So how you look this from a European perspective, where in German they love to rent, where else in Asians they don't like to rent, they like to have it as their own property. And I think this Eastern cultures also is building on this, the Eastern former communist countries, they also love to have this property because they say they lost the value of the economic scale. So
right, I'm getting the journalist thing. I'm going to say they're going to put us off the air. You know how they do it on the BBC and stuff. It's just boom, you're off. So, Frans, would you, in 1 second, address this cultural issue and how you can change? How you can encourage people to think differently about laying up treasures on earth, in biblical terms?
This is definitely it's a question. Let's say they always call it in politics paradigm shift.
Yes.
We need a social paradigm shift towards renting or not renting, but towards sustainability. And we feel that a model which is based strongly, it's not 100%, it's 50-50 more or less, where you don't have a social stigma. I think that's an important point. But it will only work if there is a political conviction to support this on a leveled approach and not only to do it in the form of social subsidies. Because then
and also if rents are affordable all round, because otherwise, you know, if you can't afford to rent, you have no desire to rent. Any more responses to this idea of changing people's mindsets and attitudes? Maybe one last goodbye word.
One very short goodbye word, because we're talking about the new urban agenda. I just wanted to point out that the new urban agenda has various points on housing and that it has a very holistic approach towards housing. And that if we look at the new urban agenda, we see various points that put housing at the center. And if we are aware of the fact that housing matters and that housing has to be regulated by the government, then we can definitely have this paradigm shift that Mr. Marais mentioned in making housing more sustainable, more social, more affordable, and more inclusive to include everyone that's looking for housing in a society.
One thing that is very important is that we ask people to be more mobile, in Europe in particular. People have to change, you know, jobs, they have to change cities, they are able to move. But at the same time, if they're not able to find an apartment affordable in the new city where they're going to, then the pressure is very high for them to stay where they are, because then it creates social difficulties. So it's very important that we can go into the mindset of our colleague from Germany to have sustainable, affordable, quality housing at a reasonable price, and then it will support the people to rent, like it is the case in Germany, and to move and be mobile and not be stuck in their own region or city for financial reasons.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the jargon phrase, that's all we have time for. Thank you very much for your participation. A warm round of applause for my panel. Good night.
Mic check. 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 Mic check.
Okay. C'est quatre langues.
Qatari language. We can add Arabic.
Ouais.
If you want.
Madame. Jeanette. What's happening to the world? Oh yeah, got it.
You got it?
Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. Now we've got the lady.
Don't
the
worry.
No, no. I told not to get hard anymore.
Good, good.
I won't go the rover. I wait only the grave. Right, we can go.
Okay.
Mesdames et messieurs, bonjour. On s'arrange maintenant pour une session bilingue. On va se parler et en français et en anglais. Donc, permettez-moi de me présenter tout d'abord. Je m'appelle John Sibiokumu, je suis kényan. Je suis présentateur à la télé et ça me fait très plaisir de mener cette discussion. Laissez-moi entamer la discussion avec quelques mots en français que je vais lire d'un petit bouquin là. Ce sera très facile pour moi. Donc, le financement est un élément clé pour accroître la mise à disposition de logements adéquats et durables. La disponibilité de financement pour l'habitat est également cruciale pour rendre les logements abordables grâce à l'octroi de prêts et de crédits, de subventions et de soutien financier pour financer de logement et accroître la capacité de la population à économiser et à payer le logement. Ceci est fondamental pour atteindre l'objectif de ne laisser personne derrière le tout premier engagement du nouvel agenda urbain. Le Maroc a un exemple intéressant intéressants à partager. Et donc, on est arrivé au moment où je dois présenter mon panel. Je vais commencer par Madame Fatma Shihab. Madame, vous êtes secrétaire générale du ministère de l'Aménagement du territoire national, de l'urbanisme, de l'habitat et de la politique de la ville du Royaume du Maroc. Est-ce vrai? Oui, c'est vrai. Voilà. Et à côté de vous, en fait, Monsieur Alioune Badian, co-président de l'ICASU. Vous allez y rajouter des choses pour dire ce que c'est que l'ICASU. Et next to you, the gentleman who wishes to speak in English is Mr. Hassan Radwan, director of the National School of Architecture. So the understanding is that a great majority of our audience is francophone, and therefore we shall try to oblige them by talking as much as possible in French. But now I've got an excuse to speak in English because Hassan wants to speak in English. So, Madame, si vous voulez bien commencer.
Merci de m'avoir donné la possibilité d'intervenir sur les mécanismes de financement des projets d'habitat au Maroc. Le logement, comme vous l'avez bien dit, a toujours été au centre des priorités au niveau international. Les leaders mondiaux reconnaissent que c'est l'un des plus grands défis de l'urbanisation durable. La cible 11 du développement durable est un engagement mondial à fournir un logement adéquat, abordable et sans risque pour tous et à réduire les bidonvilles d'ici 2030. Le but étant, dans le cadre de la nouvel agenda urbain, de ne laisser personne derrière. Par ailleurs, le nouvel agenda urbain souligne la nécessité d'offrir à chacun la possibilité d'accéder à un logement décent, un objectif qui ne peut être atteint que moyennant l'alignement et la convergence de différentes stratégies de logement avec les politiques urbaines nationales en accord avec tous les secteurs à vocation sociale, en l'occurrence l'éducation, la santé, l'emploi, etc. Le Maroc, à travers cette intervention portant sur le financement comme élément clé pour garantir un logement décent, présentera son expérience à travers les dispositifs mis en place. Il est à rappeler que le Royaume du Maroc dispose d'une longue expérience dans le domaine de l'urbanisme et de l'habitat. On vient de fêter, il y a 2 ans, le centenaire de l'urbanisme, c'est-à-dire 100 ans de pratique de l'urbanisme au Maroc. Et bien sûr, dans le domaine de l'habitat, on est considéré comme un pays qui a développé des approches importantes dans le cadre de la lutte contre l'habitat insalubre. Le Royaume a injecté des fonds non négligeables dans le secteur du logement en termes financiers. En effet, une meilleure gestion de l'espace en adéquation avec les moyens disponibles dictés par les orientations royales a toujours été une des priorités du secteur. Il s'agit de produire plus, mais mieux, avec les capacités financières des ménages les moins solvables et en compatibilité avec les moyens de l'État et des collectivités locales. Dans ce sens, plusieurs dispositifs ont été adoptés pour accompagner une demande accrue en matière d'habitat à travers principalement l'augmentation de la production du logement social, moyennant l'encouragement des aides directes, l'octroi d'avantages fiscaux aux promoteurs immobiliers privés et publics et la réforme des systèmes de financement. Le budget général de l'État a toujours constitué le principal instrument de la structuration du secteur. Il constitue également un moyen de traduction effective de la solidarité nationale à travers l'amélioration des conditions de vie des couches déshéritées de la population par le biais du relèvement de leurs revenus et l'élargissement de leur accès aux services et aux équipements de base. D'ailleurs, la période des années 70 a été l'ère caractérisée par l'affectation d'importantes ressources budgétaires. Ce budget se verra au début des années 80 renforcé par des ressources émanant des aides extérieures, principalement dans le cadre de la coopération avec la Banque mondiale, l'USAID et l'Union européenne. À partir de 1986, en vue de pallier les insuffisances des dotations budgétaires et d'instaurer un équilibre financier des opérations, d'une part, et d'améliorer surtout la qualité urbanistique des lotissements en diversifiant son contenu, on a introduit la notion de mixité sociale mais aussi financière. En 2002, la stratégie en matière de production de logements allait reconnaître un nouveau tournant. Notre pays s'engagea alors dans une série de réformes foncières, institutionnelles, juridiques, financières. Concernant ce dernier point, et pour concrétiser les directives royales, de nouveaux dispositifs ont été adoptés par les gouvernements successifs. Pour garantir un financement périn, des programmes à forte teneur sociale, un fonds Solidarité Habitat a été créé en 2002 qui permet la comptabilisation des opérations afférentes aux projets d'habitat social et de lutte contre l'habitat insalubre. C'est un compte d'affectation spéciale qui est alimenté par les produits de la taxe sur le ciment, dont le taux a été porté par les lois de finances successives de 2004 et de 2012 de 100 à 150 dirhams la tonne. La taxe étant prélevée à la vente, sortie usine du ciment. Donc, quand on a un tonnage de ciment qui est vendu, il y a un pourcentage qui va au fond. Par là, on a pu convaincre en fait les cimentiers parce qu'en payant cette taxe, on va générer et on va intervenir dans la lutte contre l'habitat insalubre et par là, booster la consommation de ciment de plus en plus. Donc, ils avaient adhéré parce que c'est un élément important pour pouvoir booster la production et par là, la consommation du ciment. Donc, c'est pour cela qu'elle a été baptisée taxe solidaire. Les alimentations de ce fonds se sont élargies à partir de 2013 pour englober 30% du produit de la taxe spéciale sur le sable qu'on a introduit à partir de cette année et aussi une taxe sur le fer à béton. Mais il reste que la taxe sur le ciment constitue à aujourd'hui 80% des ressources de ce fonds. Les recettes du fonds ont atteint durant la période 2006-2016, pour vous donner un peu une idée, un total de 23,87 milliards de dirhams, c'est-à-dire quelques 2,2 millions d'euros. Quant aux dépenses à aujourd'hui, ils sont chiffrés à quelques 2 millions d'euros, c'est-à-dire que le fonds a pu être investi dans le cadre de programmes de lutte contre l'habitat insalubre. Aussi, en vue de requalifier la demande au logement, la réforme du système de financement a opté pour la mise en place de mécanismes de garantie de crédit immobilier, afin de permettre aux différentes couches sociales d'accéder à la propriété. C'est ainsi qu'en 2003, les pouvoirs publics et les banques partenaires ont conclu une convention pour la création de 2 fonds de garantie, Fogarim et Fogaloge, permettant essentiellement pour le Fogarim d'octroyer des crédits qui sont garantis par l'État aux couches les plus vulnérables, aux couches qui ont des revenus irréguliers. Le but étant de booster l'offre et surtout la demande et surtout la demande sociale. Depuis 2011, ce fonds, le fonds Fogarim, a beaucoup concouru à l'octroi de crédits dans le cadre du programme Ville sans bidonville. Tous ces dispositifs financiers ont eu un impact positif sur le secteur de l'habitat et de la politique de la ville. Un tel impact s'affirme par la concrétisation d'importantes actions visant l'amélioration des conditions d'habiter d'une large tranche de la population sur l'ensemble du territoire national. Alors, c'est ainsi que quelques 28,6 milliards de dirhams ont été investis durant la période 2002-2016 et ont été déployés dans le cadre de l'amélioration des conditions d'habiter de plus de 2 millions d'habitants à travers la déclaration de 56 villes sans bidonville sur les 85 concernées et le programme sur les 29 villes restantes qui sont restantes à déclarer a atteint plus de 70% d'avancement. C'est quelques 1,2 million comme population qui s'est vu les conditions d'habiter s'améliorer. Bien sûr, l'intervention dans l'amélioration des habitations menaçant ruine a permis à quelques 14 000 bâtisses d'être réhabilitées et le programme d'intervention dans le menaçant ruine, il concerne quelques 43 000 bâtisses. Par ailleurs, et en vue de pérenniser la résurgence, prévenir surtout la résurgence de ce type d'habitat et de réduire le déficit en logement qui a été respectivement réduit de 1,2 million d'unités en 2002 à 840 000 unités en 2010 pour atteindre actuellement le chiffre de 400 000 unités. Et densifier et diversifier l'offre en logement, d'autres mesures à caractère fiscal ont été adoptées par l'octroi d'encouragements fiscaux. Le but étant de ne pas intervenir que dans la réparation et le rattrapage, mais aussi pour pouvoir produire du logement abordable aux autres couches pour ne pas glisser dans l'habitat informel et surtout dans les bidonvilles. Donc, les ménages à bas revenus ont trouvé dans les produits d'habitat social qui étaient soutenus par l'État un produit qui leur assure l'accès à un logement avec, bien sûr, des aides de l'État et une garantie pour l'accès au crédit. Aujourd'hui, pour consolider ces acquis, le Maroc a inscrit dans son actuel programme gouvernemental la poursuite des programmes et projets de lutte contre l'habitat insalubre sous toutes ses formes. La production de quelques 800 000 unités à l'horizon 2021 afin de réduire davantage le déficit en logement et répondre aux nouveaux besoins en termes de production de logement, mais surtout le logement social. Les efforts entrepris et les performances réalisées dans ce domaine ont permis au Maroc de réaliser d'importantes avancées en matière d'intensification et de diversification de l'offre en logements sociaux. C'est ainsi que quelques 500 000 logements ont été mis en chantier et quelques 300 000 logements ont été livrés dans le cadre des programmes de logements sociaux. Enfin, je tiens à préciser que le Maroc s'est engagé dans un processus de partage de connaissances, d'expériences et d'expertise en matière d'habitat pour la mise en œuvre des programmes communs et la prise de mesures collectives avec les pays africains en vue de maximiser les opportunités et les bénéfices des échanges sud-sud. Merci pour votre attention.
Hassan? Sorry? No, you next. I think I'm generating the discussion. You want to take over my job? This is a revolt. I think that you'll hear Hassan speaking in English. And before he does so, I am noting that Morocco as a country is celebrating 100 years of a dedicated urbanization policy. And I also drew from that presentation the fact that taxation was a key word, where you are a prime provider of cement and you tax the cement industry and then give them the incentive. The payback for them is that they build more houses. And that in these 100 years, you have this slogan that you're going to eliminate slums for all time. So that, in an African context, is heartening to hear. I've never been to Morocco, but now I've got a great urge to.
Welcome.
So, Hassan, continue that discourse. The reason I'm leaving Alioune until last is because he's going to explain what Ikusa is before I'm able to follow his discourse. I don't quite know. So, yes.
Thank you, dear moderator. I think since the topic of the panel, not only housing finance, but housing finance within the new urban agenda. Housing finance, since the topic of the panel is, of course, housing finance and Morocco as a case study and Morocco as a leading model, but also how is housing finance, how to situate it within the new urban agenda, and how actually Morocco is, of course, related to that international discourse. And I would start by making a twist, since I am from the same country. Madame Shihab, she's given us a very eloquent speech on the detailed evolution of the housing finance, but also housing finance within the context of Morocco, within the urbanization, urban development, and urban planning, territorial planning, because housing sector is not separate. And this is why I want to make here a little bit a twist to that speech to enrich the discussion. First of all, I would start with a very problematic issue of the link between urban and territorial planning versus housing planning. And if we talk about the new urban agenda, especially goal 11, and having this inclusive, safe, sustainable cities, how we could make also this housing sustainable, inclusive, safer, equitable, etc. So the issue here, because we are addressing this element in Morocco, because Morocco is very advanced in terms of urbanization, and thank you for reminding, of course, the whole audience that we just celebrated 100 years of urban planning practice in Morocco. So how we would link this housing finance that would lead us to the production of housing, and sometimes there is a concern of the quantitative approach rather than qualitative one. So how we would link the future of urbanization, highly rapid urbanization. That means we're moving from a rate of something like 20% to 60% over 3 decades. So we're here watching or witnessing very rapid urban growth, and how would that urban growth, within that urban growth, resolve the question of housing as an integrated element of urban and territorial planning in Morocco. The second point, actually, how to reposition the housing sector to resolve the growing urban sprawl. Yes, we are actually very efficient now in producing housing, and I think Morocco is pioneering, and I am not saying it to blow the trumpet of Morocco, but I see on the ground how much efforts are made to produce housing, but at the same time, we need to think about the impact of that in creating urban sprawl, and sometimes creating metropolitization, and of course, how the housing mushrooming, how we would actually manage that situation. And I think Morocco now is moving with the new ministry that we have now, is a very good example of integrating housing, urban, territorial planning, and we should not forget the politics of the city that is dealing with sustainable goals in the city to improve human conditions in cities. And of course, this will resolve the question of spatial fragmentation, inequalities, and environmental challenges, because in Morocco, the question of sustainability is not a cosmetic thing or just a veneer. It's a serious thing with a lot of projects going on, as I will mention. The second thing, actually, if we are actually boosting the housing market, how we would optimize land. 15% of the territory of Morocco is only fertile lands. And most of these cities are spreading in the most actually fertile lands. So this is another, of course, question of land optimization versus, of course, this question, of course, of controlling the peri-urban territory and the question of the center and the periphery. And we should not forget that cities in Morocco, exactly like in all African countries, we should not forget that part of our population are still in the rural area. What are the mechanisms of having decent housing in rural settlements, and what this territoriality is actually doing to improve these settlements in order to mitigate this migration, continuous migration to cities. The second main topic as well, how housing and housing finance, not just as an engineering method, but rather how to push the housing finance to be part of the package, that housing is a catalyst to sustainable development in Morocco. I think we are very conscious about that in Morocco, and I'm witnessing myself how much efforts are made in order to make housing, or to make the housing sector play a crucial role in the overall welfare and well-being. So following the UN Habitat approach, which was actually very interesting, housing as at the center. Of course, housing is the center, and this discussed yesterday with Madam Shihab. Of course, without the shelter, there will be no settlement. And if you want to have a well-organized settlement, technocratically planned, and we don't have the good human condition in that, housing, at the end, what the role of the city then? And therefore, sustainable development in addressing this question of housing finance, how we can find this adequate housing finance, but for sustainable urban development. The second thing, actually, most of the policies, they were always centralized, always at the capital. I think Morocco is doing a very good move now in enabling the local government leaders to be more involved in housing issues. It's not like parachuted solutions from the top down, but actually now with the new advanced decentralization, regionalization, I think we are now moving forward of decentralizing even the housing finance, and how can municipalities and local government play a major role in being innovative in finding financial solutions. To add to that, of course, because we were producing a large number of housing units last 4 decades. Now Morocco moved to something called new towns, la ville nouvelle, the new towns. Why the program of the new towns was actually established by Morocco? To resolve this question of quantity. We try to plan new towns to create harmonious neighborhoods in a housing environment where there is a sense of belonging, and you can have, of course, a certain social comfort, and to reduce crime, and to have, of course, more inclusive, the question of mixity, and this is why the program of the new towns in Morocco is highly successful. Last in this part, I think integrating the sustainable development sectors. Morocco is moving fast, and it's serious, and it's actually a government decision, and His Majesty is the King of Morocco decision. We have several projects. We have the Renewable Energies Project. We have the Green Morocco Project. We have the Human Development. They are not projects, actually. They are undergoing, and they are on. We have transport, improvement of infrastructure. We should not forget that transportation is a major element. If I am providing accessibility and making roads to reach distant, remote communities, where they would migrate. So this is a very important. So Morocco is actually investing in that, education and employment. And we have these sectors working. And now actually with our new minister, the main goal is to integrate all these sectors to reach a decent housing with a highly social quality conditions in order to reach to, at the end, sustainable cities. The third part, actually, that we should not actually forget, whatever we may say about housing before was considered just a need. This is why the first actions to deal with slums, though we may have financing mechanisms, before the approach was quantitative. And this is why even the United Nations and UN Habitat stopped demolishing demolishing informal housing. Why? Because these people, they don't have where to go, and displacement was a problem. There was a major impact on that, and this is why now in the new constitution of Morocco, and this is very strategic, in the new constitution of Morocco, 2011, housing is not anymore a need, is a right. The right to access or to have a decent is written in that sentence in Article 31 in the Moroccan constitution that states clearly the right to a decent dwelling. And this is actually very important, in addition, of course, to creating the positive environment for investors. We may have finance, we may have actually all the systems, and we should not forget, in all African countries, I mean, the housing finance was always centralized by the government, and the government wanted to combat slums individually, and that created a problem. We destroyed the banking system, we destroyed the market, the housing market, and how to find actually a balance between the government intervention and then the private sector. And something that I would add in this constitutional and legal framework, actually how to resolve in a consistent way the informality. We may never resolve the question of the informal in all African cities, because something actually we should not even name it informal. Resilient communities in their sustainable territories. For centuries they've been living there, and suddenly you have a new model of urban planning, and then they become kind of the antithesis of the new model. So we should not look at them as informal, but maybe they may create opportunities. And how this housing finance would include these resilient communities in a very smart way. As to some twist to the financial mechanisms, we should not forget also that in Morocco, we consider the housing sector at the macroeconomy level. And this is a very important move. And the other thing, there is a national housing finance framework. It's not just fragmented policies, but from the national or the territorial, the regional, the city level, to the little hamlet or rural small settlement, to an individual house in the middle of nowhere. So these are actually very important to make this housing finance deal with all these categories. The other thing as well in Morocco, which is interesting, we should not look at housing finance just solely resolving the housing issue, but also the housing is an opportunity. Why? Because it's a leading economic index, as it often leads to higher demand for goods and services. And since we have the crafts and the artisanal of building in Morocco, we are actually boosting a whole sector of economy, which is very important, and we may have a higher rate of employment just in the construction sector. So the other thing actually with this financing mechanism, sustainable institutions. And one colleague from Chad in a previous side event, he said, we created a bank and then that bank became the main one, and then no one can control that bank. So this is also a risk, how to diversify the portfolio of housing finance with sustainable institutions from top to down and down to top in order to guarantee a continuous offer for housing units for all range of income. And of course, an increased dialogue and engagement between the public and private sectors at all levels, local, regional, national, even international, at the African continent. Now actually we're moving in a very serious, efficient way to learn from other African countries and other African cities, and you have no idea how much fruitful and how much promising this exchange of know-how. Africa is not anymore the place where we can parachute solutions from elsewhere with these pre-made concrete boxes. I think we should be more innovative through this financing mechanism, and how the financing mechanism would actually create for us opportunities to be creative. I give you just an example. I was working in the most old cities in Morocco, Fez, and then I remember when we were doing like restoration of local housing in the Medina, we were always trying to defend the use of traditional methods of building, just to make hybrid materials, for instance. Why we are only relying on one material? This is also very important. The last part of my presentation is the urban agenda challenge. In Morocco, I think we are very conscious about UN Habitat work, and we take the international institutions in a very serious way, because we may have our local know-how, but sometimes sharing the expertise internationally through an organization like UN and UN Habitat, we are learning from this know-how, and then we move into guidelines. And now it's not the question just to resolve the question of issue through housing finance, but how to prevent slums, informality, and stuff through the mechanisms of the goal 11, make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Therefore, I have this couple of questions for Madam Shihab and, of course, the audience, because I'm here as discussant. What are the practical national and local policies to produce, upgrade, and renew existing and projected housing? We should not forget, in Africa, all African countries, we started modernization and the new urban planning, and we followed Athens Charter blindly. And now this modern stock is getting old. So we're not talking just about the old of 12 centuries. And trust me, the Medina of Fez is more sound than the housing buildings that were built in the protectorate, because they was out of the concrete, the other was out of lime, cedar wood, stone, and organic materials. If any part of the building will be gone, I can replace it in a day. If a concrete slab will be in trouble, that's a real problem. So what are this actually practical national local.
Sorry,
Yes.
if I may be so rude as to interrupt, that's a question that you're asking. I'd like to save the questions for a bit later. Because of the reduction in time, you'll understand my
Please.
preoccupation.
Yes, I know.
So
I
if
will
you would-
keep with them.
Yeah.
Yes.
The questions are later. I'm retaining from that presentation this the quotation that I'm going to sort of sleep on, of housing as a catalyst to sustainable development and a vector for socio-economic development. I'm taking away the idea that it's not a gift to the people, but a right enshrined in the Constitution. And I'm taking away the idea that I haven't heard of, and perhaps Alioune might discuss that once you've described where you come in our conversation. Everybody's doing wonderful things. I haven't heard the words monitoring. I haven't heard the word evaluation. So are you just having a fun time and congratulating yourselves, or can we monitor and evaluate what you do? Perhaps, Alioune, in your discourse, you might respond to that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Radouane nous a fait un très bon cours sur la situation du Maroc et l'agenda urbain. Je voudrais simplement aborder mes commentaires sur 4 points et venir naturellement sur la question que vous avez posée. Où en sommes-nous au Maroc en termes de la réalisation de cet agenda? Et qu'est-ce que nous devons faire dans le cadre de la coopération sud-sud pour que les efforts, les politiques, les activités qui ont été menées dans ce pays au cours des 15 dernières années, parce que je le limite là pour une raison précise, que ONU Habitat est entré au Maroc à partir de 2000, mais qu'en 2004, nous avons introduit, avec mon ami et frère Farouk Tebal et Daniel Bio, nous avons introduit la campagne mondiale sur la sécurité d'occupation foncière. C'est que le Maroc, ayant compris, l'a traduit en un programme social très très fort qu'il a appelé le programme de ville sans bidonville. Mais ce programme a été précédé 10 ans auparavant par un travail foncier que nous avons mené avec beaucoup d'experts marocains et mon ami Moussé Fadidi sur le programme contre la pauvreté, qui a aujourd'hui permis au Maroc de constituer des institutions telles que l'INO et d'autres institutions qui aujourd'hui, je peux vous le dire, en termes d'économie politique, si le Maroc n'avait pas mis en place cette politique sociale conduisant à une politique volontariste de ville sans bidonville, le Maroc n'aura pas échappé au printemps arabe. Je le dis avec force parce que je l'ai vécu et je le sais. Maintenant, ceci étant dit, la présentation de Fatma est intéressante à plusieurs domaines, mais je voulais l'analyser sur ces 4 domaines dont je veux parler. Premièrement, sur le plan économique. Je voudrais que les pays africains ici présents tiennent compte de ce que je vais dire. En termes de formation brute de capital fixe, je parle en économie. Quand nous parlons de formation brute de capital fixe, c'est tout ce qui touche l'investissement dans le secteur. Soit les maisons qui ont été achetées, les maisons qui ont été construites, ou toute la mécanique, que ce soit les pelles, que ce soit les grues, tout ce qui a été investi dans le secteur constitue année par année ce qu'on appelle la formation brute de capital fixe. Les chiffres sont extraordinaires si vous prenez le cas du Maroc. En 1960, le Maroc en totalité avait créé une formation brute de capital fixe en dollars courants de 200 millions. 200 millions de dollars. En 2015, le Maroc a atteint un chiffre record de 33 milliards 200 millions de formation brute de capital fixe en 50 ans. Et l'année la plus forte a été certainement l'année 2015, où ce chiffre de 33 milliards a été atteint. Et l'investissement dans le secteur continue dans la mesure où le Maroc doit anticiper avoir au moins 36,36 milliards de dollars investis dans le secteur. Je ne sais pas si vous savez ce que ça veut dire en termes d'investissement, parce que ce sont ça
Ces investissements qui vont par la suite garantir toutes sortes d'investissements dans le secteur que le pays va faire. Et je vous dis, ce sont cela, en termes de pays développés ou en termes de pays en développement, les mécanismes sur lesquels nous pouvons nous assurer pour mesurer les efforts que font les États chaque année sur la base de leurs ressources propres et sur la base de leur emprunt ou sur la base de toute forme d'investissement dans le secteur. Premièrement. Deuxièmement, je voulais aussi, pas être très long, mais parler du leadership. L'habitat, effectivement, comme vous l'avez dit, M. Radouane, ce n'est pas quelque chose de gratuit. Certainement, quand nous le mettons dans nos constitutions comme étant des droits, nous voulons seulement montrer le fait qu'une population ne peut pas, dans le cadre d'une équité sociale, certains être dans l'opulence et les autres être dans la pauvreté abjecte. Si vous le faites, vous aurez des printemps arabes ou des printemps africains. Dans la mesure où les populations n'acceptent pas de voir. Et malheureusement, c'est la réalité. Dans plusieurs de nos pays, en Afrique au sud du Sahara, aujourd'hui, vous connaissez ce qu'on appelle les gated communities. Nous sommes au Kenya. Les gated communities, les gens qui en ont tellement qu'ils se regroupent, qu'ils font leurs infrastructures, leurs piscines, leurs routes, leur éclairage, leur sécurité. Les autres, Dieu m'en garde. Vous le faites, ils le font comme au Nigeria. Ils vous accompagnent dans votre maison le soir, comme l'espace public a été délaissé, quelquefois sans lumière. Il y en a d'autres qui en prennent en charge. Et ceux-là sont ceux qui vous accompagnent dans vos palaces. Ils vous attendent devant votre grille parce que vous avez construit une grille de 4 mètres, des murs de 5 mètres de hauteur. Ils vous accompagnent à l'intérieur de votre maison sécurisée. Ils neutralisent vos gardes et prennent votre dîner, mangent très bien, boivent ton vin ou ton bissap, comme on dit chez nous. Et le matin, ils vous disent au revoir, en ayant dévalisé toute votre maison et les bijoux de votre épouse. C'est cela l'image, quelquefois, que je donne en tirant sur la ficelle, mais c'est la réalité d'une pauvreté qui devient abjecte dans nos pays et dans lesquels nous ne pouvons pas accepter. Et c'est là.
Vous pouvez bien poursuivre une allure très vite pour avoir
Oui.
les 4 points
D'accord.
d'affilée.
J'arrive
Alors, on va en discuter.
dans la mesure où le leadership, dans le
leadership,
secteur de l'habitat,
ouais.
permet de pouvoir redistribuer les fruits de la croissance et faire tel que le Maroc a fait au cours de ces 50 dernières années, et particulièrement au cours de ces 17 dernières années. Le Maroc a investi plus de 10 milliards de dirhams, je ne sais pas combien ça constitue en termes de dollars, pour pouvoir aujourd'hui être le pays africain le plus faible en termes de prévalence de bidonvilles. Le Maroc est aujourd'hui à près de moins de...
Juste la participation de l'État.
C'est ça.
Si on compte tout,
Voilà.
quelques 35
Exactement. Je me suis limité à la participation de l'État sur la base des statistiques que j'ai pu conserver. Voyez-vous donc qu'aujourd'hui, s'il y a une volonté d'aller de lutter contre la pauvreté, c'est donner un habitat décent à chaque citoyen. Mais ceci ne se fait pas gratuitement, nous sommes d'accord. Et ça ne doit pas se faire gratuitement. Il y a ce qu'on appelle le sweat equity, il y a d'autres formes par lesquelles un État peut pouvoir donner. Et je crois que nous l'avons appris, nous, à ONU Habitat, quand nous avons donné au Maroc le prix de ONU Habitat en 2010, c'est parce que le Maroc avait réalisé le score le plus bas, dirais-je, de moins de 10% de prévalence de slum, de population qui vit dans des conditions de bidonville. Alors, l'autre élément qui est important dans ce leadership, c'est que le Maroc reconnaît aussi que ce n'est pas parfait. Et c'est là où je voudrais venir dans l'évaluation que nous avons faite. Mais la politique économique aussi, la politique économique de l'habitat au Maroc, c'est tout ce que cela induit en termes d'emploi, de travail, qui peut permettre aux jeunes Marocains aujourd'hui de travailler dans des secteurs où c'est un secteur productif qui les permet d'avoir un gain. Parce que le secteur de l'habitat et des BTP, tout le monde le sait, quand le bâtiment va, tout va. C'est l'un des secteurs économiques le plus porteur et le plus productif d'emplois nets pour tout pays. Et c'est pourquoi je me demande, en termes de politique économique, qu'est-ce qu'attendent les Africains? Aujourd'hui, savez-vous qu'il y a au moins, Shelter Afrique nous a dit hier, qu'il y a un déficit de plus de 10 millions d'unités de logement en Afrique subsaharienne. Qu'est-ce que nous attendons pour y investir? Ce n'est pas du social. C'est un mécanisme économique le plus puissant et le plus puissant levier. Non seulement en termes d'investissement et de travail, mais aussi en termes de retour sur investissement. Demandez au ministère des Finances, qu'est-ce qui représente les rentrées les plus solides et les plus fiables en termes de budget financier d'une année sur l'autre? C'est l'habitat. La maison ne fuit pas. Le propriétaire de la maison peut fuir la taxe, mais la maison ne fuit pas. Non seulement elle ne fuit pas, mais elle est visible. Elle peut être identifiée. À cette ère où nous avons Google, quelqu'un nous disait hier qu'il y a même une collaboration avec Boeing. C'est Maurice qui disait cela, l'île Maurice, qu'il collabore avec Boeing pour avoir des mises à jour régulières sur le stock de logements qu'ils ont sur place et comment le taxer. Donc moi je dis, et j'en fais appel aux pays africains de regarder leur politique économique dans ce sens. Et finalement, je voulais toucher la taxe ciment. Je demande à tous les pays africains, en troisième partie, c'est la taxe ciment, que vous devez regarder ce mécanisme. Je ne sais pas s'il y a autre part dans le monde un tel mécanisme, mais le génie marocain a produit cette taxe sur le ciment, qui est une taxe continue, qui est une taxe permanente, et qu'ils l'ont pris de 50 dirhams, aujourd'hui ils sont environ à 150 dirhams la tonne sortie d'usine, et qui permet de financer en termes de cross-subsidy. Les pauvres qui n'ont pas les moyens, vous leur donnez des possibilités en faisant financer les riches. Ceux qui construisent avec des centaines de tonnes de ciment vont payer assez. Et il y a naturellement les promoteurs qui font, je crois que c'est 250 000 dirhams, quand les promoteurs font des habitats à ce niveau-là, ils sont exonérés. Exactement. Mais ça aussi, ça fait partie pour pouvoir faire de telle sorte que l'habitat reste à des coûts très abordables pour les populations les plus pauvres. Aujourd'hui, la taxe ciment produit, bon an, mal an, 3 milliards, 2 milliards 5 pour le Maroc chaque année. 2 milliards 5 de dirhams par année que ça produit au Maroc. Le programme qui vient d'être préparé par le Maroc, 60 programmes pour un taux de 6,5 milliards de dirhams est en cours de préparation pour vous dire que voilà un pays engagé et qui a fait de la politique de l'habitat l'axe principal de son économie. Et moi je dis, les faiblesses seulement, c'est des questions d'intégration. On a construit Tamesna, on a construit plusieurs villes nouvelles. La seule contrainte, c'est que les habitants qui y vont, ils ne vont pas seulement pour y coucher. Ils ont besoin de travail, ils ont besoin de mobilité, ils ont besoin d'intégration urbaine. Et malheureusement, une ville ne se construit pas en 10 ans, en 20 ans. Une ville se construit sur 20, 30 ans, 40 ans, pour qu'il y ait l'ensemble des commodités nécessaires. Je voudrais attirer l'attention des pays africains qui voulaient s'engager dans des villes nouvelles, qu'il va falloir soutenir pendant une dizaine d'années avec les fonds publics une ville pour que ça devienne vraiment une ville avec une âme. Et le Maroc est en train de corriger dans ce domaine. Après avoir réglé la question du nombre, ils sont en train de régler la question de la qualité qui, au départ, n'a pas été au rendez-vous. Et deuxièmement, la question de l'intégration économique des populations qui vivent dans les zones, dans les nouvelles villes et les zones qui ont été définies. Finalement, la coopération sud-sud. I'm closing.
Vas-y.
La coopération sud-sud est ce que le Maroc, après avoir...
On me dit qu'il faut absolument qu'on s'arrête. On n'a plus de... oui, c'est terminé pour...
D'accord, ben, je dirais simplement que la coopération sud-sud est le dernier axe du Maroc. Merci.
No more connectivity.
Je pense que ça a été.
Ouais.
C'était surtout des commentaires plus.
Oui, social media, il faut les tuer, ces médias sociaux. On nous coupe là, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Merci beaucoup quand même.
Merci.
May I have a round of applause for my... Thank you so very much. Thank you for staying. Merci d'avoir...
I'd like to thank this
oui, mais c'est-à-dire que... attends. Oui, attends. Oui. Mais il faut se mettre d'accord qu'on n'est plus à la télé. Hein. On ne se voit plus sur Facebook. Hein. On va continuer à parler. Très bien. Nous, on continue.
Je vais juste terminer alors.
Alors, oui. Alors, on a combien de temps?
Je vais juste terminer.
Pardon? Mais c'est quand même...
Voilà, je termine 2 minutes.
Ouais.
2 minutes, je termine sur la
Laisse-le
coopération
terminer.
sud-sud.
C'est quand même poli. Hein.
Oui, bon, de toute façon, je pense que nous aurons d'autres occasions entre nous et le Maroc et l'Afrique pour pouvoir échanger nos pratiques. Depuis cette année 2017, comme vous le savez, le Maroc a regagné sa place au sein de l'Union africaine. Ceci est un événement important parce que nous en avons souffert à plusieurs titres, dans plusieurs scènes, de rivalités qui n'ont pas permis au Maroc d'avoir sa chance de développer sa politique africaine. Ceci est fait et nous avons vu depuis quelques mois des tournées régulières de Sa Majesté sur la scène africaine. Et ce n'est plus l'Afrique au sud du Sahara, mais c'est l'Afrique australe, c'est l'Afrique de l'Est, un peu partout, avec des politiques qui permettent de voir nouer des coopérations, tant sur le plan de l'habitat, de la planification, sur le plan bancaire, sur le plan des assurances, mais aussi sur le plan même des constructions d'usines en cimenterie et tout. Et je crois que c'est de cela que nous devons prendre une possibilité d'échanger entre nous, d'échanger des expériences. Le Fomadou 2 que vous avez entendu, le Maroc a abrité, dans le cadre de la coopération sud-sud, le premier forum sur l'habitat, le forum des ministres sur l'habitat et le développement urbain, en préparation de Quito. Au retour de Quito et à la suite de Fomadou 1, le Sénégal a été pressenti pour abriter la deuxième conférence l'année prochaine, en 2018, octobre. Je crois que nous devons nous y préparer et faire de telle sorte que nous en faisions un succès éclatant d'échanges, d'expertise et d'expérience. Mais en attendant, je pense que le Forum de l'habitat du Sénégal du mois d'octobre sera le premier test de cette collaboration entre le Maroc et le Sud, parce que le Maroc est l'invité d'honneur de cet forum de Seine Habitat 2017 au Sénégal. Encore une fois, la coopération Sud-Sud est une réalité réelle. La participation du Maroc aux instances de l'Union africaine permettront à ce qu'on ne pourra plus dire que le Maroc n'est pas présent et le Maroc sera exclu. Jamais il ne le sera. Et bienvenue au Maroc. Welcome back, Morocco. Thank you very much.
Merci. Mesdames et messieurs, il faut garder quand même un schéma quelconque. Il faut quand même garder un schéma quelconque parce qu'on raccourcit. Hassan, si vous voulez bien sortir vos questions pour que madame ait le temps d'y réfléchir et d'y répondre. Oui. So, very quickly, though. Otherwise, you're letting me down.
It's not questions, actually.
Yeah.
Just, I think Aliou knows how important the construction and the housing sector is contributing to the structural transformation of African cities. And they think it's not the question of the quantity of concrete we are consuming, but how much this construction actually providing sustainable housing and housing of opportunities and not housing of dormitories. Yes. 1. 2, inclusive urbanization and urban planning and making housing part of the agenda of urban and territorial planning. I witnessed myself when I was in the planning side and the housing side. And I think Madam Shihab, she's well situated to address this issue. And I think the housing standard is also very important for safer communities. I really second what Aliou said in a very eloquent way. I think Morocco, we don't have such thing called gated communities. The role of civic society in a decent housing creates a decent housing environment. It's not like security enforced to create stability. And this is why you are absolutely right, how we passed through the Arab Spring, because His Majesty launched the first project of human development, and everyone was questioning what he's doing since maybe 2 decades now. And that human development, working grassroots with poor communities in remote places, that saved Morocco for any trouble. And this is very important. And also, within this housing sector, we should not forget now the new risks, catastrophes, and I think preventing disaster risk and measures for vulnerable zones. And we need now, within this global insecurity, we think that we're secure within a territory, how to prevent and making measures, not only seismic solutions, but also for other solutions. Strengthening urban governance, I think Alioune mentioned it, so I will not dwell on that.
Please
And
don't repeat what's been said.
I'm done. The other points, you've mentioned them already. Thank you so much.
Thank you. May we have some questions from the floor in clusters, as in 3 at a go. 3 at a go, and then see how, yes.
Okay,
Monsieur.
Mukhtar Gambo, I'm the ambassador of the Kingdom of Morocco. So I have to say something. And I will start with Mr. Badian's very important remark about this kind of geostrategic context. South-South approach that it was initiated by Morocco and that is actually sort of adapted or embraced by many countries. It's very important to know that the South-South approach replaces one which was traditional, which is North-South approach. And it's very important in the sense that for Africans, in order to reach somewhere, we need to have an African approach to many of our daily problems. And let's say it, we inherited from colonial times our housing policy. Mr. Hassan said in Morocco there are no gated communities, but there used to be gated communities. It used to be the model for this bourgeois housing. You should adopt or should imitate the French model, just like another ex-British colony would adopt the British model. And let's not forget also that colonialism destroyed our housing or urban policy. The Medina was devalued upon independence. The Medina, the traditional city, was the city of the poor. And the city, la ville moderne, is the city of the rich. So this kind of housing policy from colonial times was based on discrimination. So the biggest challenge, we're still living the consequences, how to go beyond it. And I'm glad actually to see that many countries, after Morocco's return to the African Union, are really into this philosophy of South-South cooperation. And I salute actually this partnership between Senegal and Morocco. The other point, I am not going to go actually speak about details, but there is a big challenge. I'm glad actually that Mr. Hassan emphasized the importance not just of urban policy, but territorial management, because the biggest challenge right now is this traffic, inconsistent as it is, between the rural and the urban. I mean, I've heard so many people, experts talking about urban policy, but let's not forget that as long as the problems of the rural world are not fixed, we can never reach a good, practical urban policy. We have droughts, this is another African problem. People in the countryside, they can't rent, either they own, even if the land is there abandoned, but they don't have access to housing, because there is, like in Morocco, you can't rent. You have to own or just go somewhere. So when in the times of drought, you have a lot of people coming to the city. And then I would ask a question actually to my friend Fatna. How do you draw the line between those who, like people in the slums, how do you draw the line between those who need and those who don't? Because certain people can just use this manipulation thing. They can go manipulate the state. They go, 20, 30 people would just go to the city and occupy a plot that is not managed and all of a sudden claim that they need housing. How do you draw the line between the two? One. The other thing I was interested actually in knowing what you can tell us, either you or Mr. Hassan, about, that Morocco recently legalized the status of more than 20,000 refugees and immigrants, mostly from sub-Saharan Africa. And do they have access to, at least, do they have access, theoretically speaking? I know that it's very recent. Do they have access to the same benefits in social housing like other Moroccan Moroccans? Thank you.
Let's stick to the cluster idea. The gentleman behind you, please. Sir.
Merci, monsieur le modérateur. J'ai...
Votre
Merci. Hamid Mohamed Dahaloub, je suis le ministre de l'Aménagement du Territoire, Développement de l'Habitat et de l'Urbanisme du Tchad.
Merci.
Je rebondis sur la fin de l'intervention de Madame Fatma et le dernier aspect abordé par Dr Alioune, que j'ai le plaisir d'écouter aujourd'hui plusieurs fois, mais ce n'est pas de trop. Hein. Sur la coopération sud-sud. Aujourd'hui, je me réjouis en tant qu'Africain de constater effectivement et de toucher du doigt une coopération sud-sud entre le Maroc et le Tchad. Entre le Maroc et le Tchad pour la construction de 1000 logements qui sont aujourd'hui en train d'être mis en œuvre par un mécanisme marocain, public-privé, et d'une cimenterie deuxième, troisième génération qui est en train de se mettre en place. Ceci grâce au mécanisme que nous avons mis en place, hein, qui respecte donc les mécanismes que nous avons mis en place avec ONU Habitat, avec lesquels nous collaborons depuis 15 ans. Nous avons fait beaucoup de choses. Mais je m'excuse, ce n'est pas les lieux de les développer ici.
Monsieur le ministre, est-ce que par la suite vous allez poser une question?
Je vais transformer mon intervention à une question par la suite.
Ouais.
Pour dire que ce que le Maroc a pu faire avec le Tchad, malgré les difficultés que les uns et les autres rencontrent, d'autres partenaires pouvaient le faire, et peut-être même plus. Mais ce que nous constatons, c'est l'insuffisance de l'intervention, de l'appui de nos partenaires avec qui nous avons beaucoup de programmes, mais dont la mise en œuvre peine à se mettre en place. Alors qu'aujourd'hui, notre planète est devenue un village. Nous ne pouvons pas nous éviter. Le problème des uns sont le problème des autres. Nous avons une planète à sauvegarder. Nous avons des jeunes qui ont besoin d'être écoutés. Nous avons des jeunes qui ont besoin d'être fixés sur le sol. Nous avons des jeunes qui ont aujourd'hui la prétention de pouvoir bénéficier de nos richesses. Cela, si on ne les occupe pas, si on ne leur trouve pas de l'espace qu'il faut, si on ne les ménage pas dans le bon sens, on va les pousser dans les bras des extrémistes. Ils vont se sentir isolés, ils vont se retrouver entre eux dans les bidonvilles. Et pour nous, cette sauvegarde de l'environnement que nous cherchons ne pourra se faire qu'en intégrant ces jeunes qui sont aujourd'hui le futur de demain. Et ma question, tout à fait, qui découle donc de ces petits constats, pourquoi ne nous mettrons pas en avant ONU Habitat qui aujourd'hui œuvre dans le sens de nous aider dans le développement urbain à faire un plaidoyer intégrateur qui prendrait en compte, il est évident que les pays ont chacun sa diversité, mais qui prendrait en compte et qui, d'une manière transversale, puisse aider les uns et les autres à pouvoir, j'ai dit, faire de l'urbanisation notre priorité, en ce sens qu'aujourd'hui, nous avons 1 milliard de bidonvilles, d'après ce que nous avons entendu aujourd'hui. En 2030, nous aurions 3 milliards d'habitants dans les bidonvilles. Ça veut dire que quels que soient les efforts qui sont consentis aujourd'hui, nous allons donc tripler le nombre de ceux qui vont habiter dans les bidonvilles. Et ça, c'est un problème qui se pose à l'humanité d'une manière générale, auquel nous devrons faire attention. Donc ma question, c'est de faire un plaidoyer d'une manière générale pour qu'on résolve nos problèmes. Merci.
Mesdames et messieurs, il faut qu'on s'arrête, ça se comprend. Alors on aura une dernière question. Je suis tout à fait convaincu que tous nos panélistes sont toujours là pour continuer cette discussion à une personne, autour d'un café ou quelque chose comme ça. si ça tient vraiment à continuer cette question, mais pour nous, ici, dans cette salle, il faut qu'on s'arrête. Donc, la dernière question, c'était la troisième question. La troisième question. Et le mot de la fin sera à vous, madame, comme notre... Oui. Sorry. Thank
Merci,
you.
je vais faire très court. Je
Oui.
suis Issa Khadiagana de Mauritanie. Je représente le ministère de l'Habitat, de l'Urbanisme et de l'Aménagement du territoire. Je voudrais dire à nos amis marocains qu'ils ont un ambassadeur. Je parle de vos programmes partout où je vais. Et Monsieur Aline Badiane, que je vais taquiner un peu, le programme Ville sans bidonville du Maroc a été possible, c'est vous qui l'avez dit, parce qu'avant, il y a eu un programme foncier. Il faut qu'on avance sur les questions foncières, la définition des questions foncières pour la qualification d'un bidonville, si on veut donner une chance de succès au programme qu'on va mettre en œuvre. Ma deuxième observation, et je m'excuse si je n'ai pas pu assister à l'intervention du Maroc cet après-midi, deux petites choses pour ma propre gouverne. Quelle est la capacité de remboursement du ménage pauvre au Maroc? C'est très important pour comprendre un peu comment vous avez pu mettre en mouvement. La dernière chose, et la toute dernière chose, c'est combien, dans cette mixité dont vous avez parlé, quelle proportion par rapport aux différents types de logements?
Thank you. Ivy?
Merci.
Sorry, there's always the good old notion of fairness. That gentleman over there is going to go and give me bad energy. Come back and ask your question. I want to be loved in the next life. Ask your
Okay,
question.
thank you.
Yeah.
Actually, it's not a question, it's more a provocation to the panel and to ourselves. And
please introduce yourself, sir.
Yeah, I'll be very
Please
summarized.
introduce yourself.
There is no doubt.
Please introduce yourself first.
My name is Claudio Scioli. I'm from UN Habitat. Okay. There is no doubt that the role of housing is fundamental for the achievement of the new urban agenda and the SDG. SDG 11.1 says provision of affordable housing and slum upgrading. So we are assuming, or the assumption is, providing affordable housing at scale will help us to achieve sustainable urban development, provided that also we prevent the appearance of slums. So slum upgrading appears as well as an indicator in the 11.1. So we are assuming, and all the two panels I've seen, that we are providing housing as if housing comes as a single tenure module. What do I want to say? We made a survey in 200 cities in the world. It's called the UN Sample of Cities. And what did we find? That both through the home ownership, housing is unaffordable. Unaffordable. Means 200 cities, dividing them by income, housing is unaffordable in all 200 cities. Then we look at rental. Guess what? Housing is unaffordable through the rental. Just putting house price to income ratio 3 and 25% of household income devoted to rent. People cannot afford. Where do they go? They go informal, overcrowding. And the question I want to make to the panel and ourselves who work in housing, we need to get out of the single tenure as if home ownership is the only solution. Now we look at Western, Central, and Eastern European countries. We have the data. What do we have? The richest country, which are richest countries in the world, have a significant part of their housing stock rental, and some of that social rental.
As we heard from Germany.
Yeah.
This afternoon.
Germany is more the private rental, but in other countries it's the social rental. So there are social entrepreneurs that provide social rental. But the poorest countries are becoming nations of homeowners. It's a paradox. So what happens is, if we don't change the paradox, the paradigm, if we don't change and start thinking about policy out of the box, we will continue repeating the same policies over and over, and we know where it ends. Mexico went to a scale never seen, between 450 and 600,000 units per year. And guess what? 15 years later, 5 million housing vandalized, abandoned, vacant, with incredible housing finance available. So we need to think out of the box, and the speakers on the first and the second are assuming that the provision is only one, but we need to diversify. We need to think different types of policy. Until the moment we don't move and connect with the urban policy, which is because we're building cities. In the 200 cities, just for the information, we made a survey and we look between 35 and 85% of the land cover is occupied by housing, residential use, with an average of 50%. So any investment in housing, any intervention in housing will have an incredible impact on urbanization in cities. So we need to think about different policies. You know,
thank you. Madam, may I give you 3 minutes? Don't you want to hear what people have to say after you've said what you've said? Oh, you're going to the moon. You're going to the moon. Okay, 3 minutes. 3 minutes, madame, si vous voulez bien.
Je vais être très, très brève. Je vais d'ailleurs commencer par la dernière intervention. Je suis tout à fait d'accord avec vous, monsieur, parce qu'on a fait des évaluations les 2 dernières années et le Maroc se rend aujourd'hui qu'il doit diversifier l'offre et surtout l'offre en location. On est en train de travailler sur comment encourager l'offre de location et surtout la location sociale. Deuxièmement, je suis tout à fait d'accord avec l'intervention de M. Hassan Redouane et le lien qu'il a fait entre la planification urbaine, l'intégration des politiques publiques et bien sûr l'impact indéniable de l'habitat et du secteur du BTP en général, son impact économique et aussi en matière d'emploi, etc., en matière de pourcentage dans le PIB et dans la FBCF et aussi, par exemple, le Maroc, c'est à peu près 1 million d'emplois presque annuels entre ce qui se perd et ce qui se regagne. Donc, je pense que l'élément financement est important. Il est aussi à souligner que dans l'intervention de la Mauritanie, je pense que la question foncière, c'est le premier ingrédient d'ailleurs ingrédient de la politique du logement et de la politique urbaine en général. S'il n'y a pas de foncier, on ne peut rien développer. Je veux aussi répondre à votre question par rapport à quelle est la capacité de remboursement des ménages marocains. C'est à peu près 1000 dirhams le mois pour les crédits octroyés dans le cadre du logement social. C'est 1000 à 1200 dirhams, c'est à peu près 100 à 102 euros le mois. Donc, je pense que la garantie à travers le fonds Fogarim, elle a très bien marché, puisqu'elle a permis à des milliers de résidents dans les bidonvilles de pouvoir bénéficier de logements. À côté de cela, on a développé au Maroc ce qu'on appelle le financement à travers le tiers associé. C'est aussi une pratique, c'est 2 ménages qui s'associent avec quelqu'un qui a de l'argent, un petit promoteur qui leur construit, il a le droit à un rez-de-chaussée et 3 étages, il leur donne 2 logements gratuitement parce qu'eux, ils sont supposés entrer avec leur foncier qu'ils ont eu de l'État, ils leur payent le foncier, ils payent la participation symbolique et puis ils leur construisent et comme ça, ils ont des logements gratuits, c'est-à-dire qu'ils mettent à contribution leur foncier qu'ils ont obtenu et par là, lui, il vend les 2 autres logements à d'autres ménages qui n'appartiennent pas au bidonville. Et par là, on garantit aussi la mixité sociale. C'est aussi un outil ingénieux de pouvoir permettre à ces gens de pouvoir financer leur logement. Je pense que je m'arrête là. Les commentaires qui ont été faits aussi par M. Badiane, il faut continuer dans le cadre de la coopération sud-sud parce que réellement, c'est ces coopérations win-win qui vont permettre à l'Afrique réellement de lever la voix, mais de mettre en œuvre réellement des politiques qui permettront à tout un chacun de vivre décemment là où il est, partout dans les pays de l'Afrique et bien sûr par-delà au monde entier. Merci.
That's it. No. He's trying to be funny. It's not funny anymore. Thank you very much for coming. And thank you very much for being so engaged in the conversation that we don't want to leave, but we have to. Till next time, travel well. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. You get tired.